Hey everybody, thank you so much for making it back after lunch. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it, had a good chance to go through the idea workshop, meet some new people, enjoy some good food. So now we are going to transition over to the case competition. And the Cornell EMI case competition is a key event in the conference. It boosts collaboration among universities and strengthens Johnson's ties with other academic institutions. Moreover, it speaks to EMI's focus on international and interinstitutional collaboration. The impact of globalization towards business, both locally and globally, is immense, and ignoring it would be a catastrophic undertaking. The goal of the case competition is to identify and answer questions that real businesses and managers are facing today in relation to emerging markets. The growing role of emerging multinationals in the business world continues to evolve, and this case competition seeks to challenge us to come up with win-win solutions for existing stakeholders. This year, the case focused on scaling an African e-commerce company to expand their operations internationally, and all participants in the case competition came from MBA and other graduate level programs in the United States and across the globe. First, we want to thank all the teams who participated in the Corning Cornell EMI case competition. In total, we had 42 teams with 179 students representing 17 schools from 7 countries who participated. For the final round, we are very excited to announce the 5 finalists. First, we have from Indiana University, Team Kelly Consulting. Second, we have from Tufts University, Team Fletcher Connects. Then we have from IIM Ahmedabad, Team Dynamics, followed by Team Rocket from Iim Bangalore, and lastly, Team Ramen from University of Dhaka. Before we start, I just want to take a second and thank Amanda Ward, who she is in Nashville right now, but she was really the cornerstone. She helped so much to organize this case competition. And to all of our judges, Lorena, Peter, Surav, Sophia, Ari, Christina, Gabrielle, Claude, Gianna, Patrick, Roberto, Anirudh, Alex, Anuj, and Rita Wanal. As you can see, it took a huge team to put this together, so we're very excited to kick it off. So the first team to go will be Team Ramen from University of Dhaka. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Could someone confirm if I'm audible? Yeah, great.
Yeah, you can go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay. We'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Greetings, everyone. We are Team Ramen here to help Totowaka become the biggest e-commerce platform in Africa. To start off, Totowaka operates in 10 countries inside Africa and has smaller platforms outside Africa. There are 20 million website visits in a month, and average transactions display a strong foothold in existing African markets. However, there exist barriers to e-commerce in Africa in terms of logistical infrastructure, marketplace concentration in developed regions, and other external factors such as social instability. Despite barriers, a growing consumer trend in Africa and its young population makes it an e-commerce prospect like no other. This is why here is an influx in the e-commerce market and regulatory actions such as the free trade agreement boosted. This brings us to our decision points of whether they should expand, and if so, then what the region should be. Here's a quick view of the 3 challenges we'll address. There's a saying, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Our recommendation resonates with this on a philosophical level. Our agile plan is robust enough to expand into potential markets, but it is not restricted by external factors, but is much rather adaptable in all situations, optimizing its effectiveness. This, at the end of the day, delivers accelerated development for Totowaka as a company. This is extremely important given the fact that a rigid recommendation is likely to fail because of uncertainties and factors that might play out in the region. And thus, we have a 9-step recommendation solution. The first decision point is whether we should expand into new markets or solely focus on existing markets. Expansion is considerable given that there are a lot of markets with potential, and entering these give us a competitive advantage. Solely focusing on the current market means yielding lower marginal utility, hitting quicker maturity, and limiting growth potential. Therefore, analyzing the pros and cons, our decision is to expand into new markets. This not only helps us gain competitive advantage, but maximizes growth potential. But most importantly, international competition is presenting a threat to first-party sales from Totowaka, and expanding essentially means we can negate that threat as well.
The second decision point is, should we expand inside Africa or outside it? Expanding inside will help Totowaka leverage its current resources and existing brand value, capitalize on the free trade agreement, and utilize the demographic and consumer behavior similarities. Market outside Africa is highly saturated and competitive with some of the biggest companies in the world. Regulations and consumer behavior are different as well. We thus choose to expand within Africa because only 7 companies have more than 1 million monthly visits inside the continent. The market also shows much growth potential with increasing consumer spending and mobile internet usage. The free trade agreement will help in developing logistical capacities and the existing brand value in fast consumer acquisition. This brings us to the challenges in the existing scenario. Firstly, the company lacks a clear vision about the core business. In only 7 years of its operation, it has shifted from food delivery to online classifieds market to mobile financial services without establishing a stronghold and acquiring any market properly. The second challenge is finding the right balance between growth and profitability. The company has expanded to multiple services and went outside Africa, showing the risk of hitting a growth plateau. The $600 million cash in hand shows that they did not address growth potential and marginal costs of market saturation versus sunk costs. And finally, the third challenge is the lack of a consistent go-to-market strategy. The exit from Tanzania and small contributions to revenue from UAE and Europe shows they entered markets whimsically, did not have a strategy regarding product market fits, competitive landscape, and external factors.
In order to increase profitability without incurring high sunk cost, while also retaining a strong position at the top, Totowaka needs a focused plan to enter new markets in Africa. Our recommendation is to follow a 9-step plan that allows for critical evaluation and reiteration. The first step is a standardized selection criteria where we will measure the market's readiness and the market potential. This will allow us to compare how feasible or scalable it would be for an e-commerce to enter a new country. We will use a scoreboard evaluation to decide which country should be shortlisted. After the first phase of screening, we will evaluate the shortlisted countries according to their performance across the following criteria: global indices on postal reliability, logistics, ease of doing business, e-governance, inclusive internet, and global competition. The weighted score will objectively rank these countries, and we will conduct market piloting in the countries ranked at the top. Step 3 is the piloting itself. This is the step that will allow Totowaka to properly evaluate whether it's a good idea to deploy their business in a country or not. It will minimize the risk and prevent a repetition of their experience in Tanzania. The idea is to first launch Totowaka Marketplace on a very small scale in the top 2 or 3 countries according to our ranking. Here, we will onboard a few sellers who meet our standards and partner with third-party logistics provider. The market piloting will run for 6 months to 1 year. During this time, it is crucial to properly evaluate the performance of the pilot run. And this is where our 4th step comes in. KPIs, including but not limited to repeat purchases and growth rates, will tell us how the market pilot is running and doing in terms of buyer behavior and satisfaction, e-commerce literacy, logistical performance, and overall profitability.
Evaluating the market testing in the selected countries according to the KPIs will allow us to rank them, and the country or the region with the best rank becomes the first priority for Totowaka to launch a full-scale expansion plan in. Step 6 is where we decide how to allocate our funds for expansion. For Totowaka, it is important to gain sustainable revenue and profits from a country. So we are in here for the long haul. We will focus on low cash conversion cycles, reduce fixed costs through partnerships, and seek local investments to develop a strong infrastructure wherever needed. The market piloting will give us data on purchase patterns and consumer preferences. Using that data in the step 7, we will design the sales and product mix. The idea here is to start with low volume, high margin for first-party products to develop the brand value while pushing marketplace sellers with high demand products. With more reliable market data, we will move to high volume, low margin products. Gradually, market piloting and designing the product mix will, these are not only exclusive to the Totowaka's expansion plan, these 2 steps are absolutely crucial to identify any of the changing consumer demands in existing markets, especially after the effects brought by the pandemic. Identifying unique user needs from market testing and subsequent proper positioning and differentiation of products will help Totowaka fend off local and international competitors in their current markets. In step 8, we will optimize the logistics in the newly entered market in order to ensure lower lead times and better margins and customer satisfaction. Proximity warehouses and strategic pickup and drop-off points are important, but this is also where we can leverage latest technologies to include predictive modeling for better demand prediction and inventory management, and machine learning and geographic information systems to identify efficient routes in areas with poor road infrastructures. Gradually, we will upsell additional services such as Totowaka Pay, seller service desks, and premium offers to attract and retain our customers in the new market. For this plan, we have predicted that it will take a year to plan things out and a year more for us to execute them before results can actually be seen and we can further develop on it.
Now let me give a run through all the recommendations and present an actual example of how it can be implemented. Firstly, we measured the criteria of every country of Africa to find each country's market readiness and potential. We found 6 countries that come on top of the list, as you can see here on the table. Secondly, we consider more intricate factors like inclusive intern index and logistics performance index. And from this, we can shortlist 2 countries that stand out from the rest. One is Mauritius and the other is Namibia. So on step 3, we move forward to the market piloting in these 2 countries. Since we'll run a marketplace model of e-commerce, we'll pair up with a logistics partner like Bonjeni for Mauritius and Tuma for Namibia. And then we'll start onboarding sellers with good credentials through incentives and market the platform to urban concentrations. From this piloting program, we'll evaluate the KPIs we had set, like the number of repeated purchases and unique user growth rate, in order to finalize the country we're going to expand to. Let's say from the piloting program, Mauritius turned out to be the most suitable one to expand. The next step would be to look for investment and partnership opportunities in Mauritius, for which we'll look into Port Louis and Plains Wilhelms, which are Mauritius' top startup hubs. After that, we'll decide on a product mix to launch first, for which we'll take data-backed decisions to strategically begin with low volume, high margin first-party products and push the third-party products of high demand. As soon as we've started with our operations in full, we'll set up warehouses in around high demand clusters and use GIS to optimize routes of delivery. In the last step, we'll gradually introduce augmented services like mobile payments into the new market. This step 7 to 9 is also the strategy to grow in existing markets. Our solution also considers ESG factors like GIS to minimize environmental harm and democratizing access to retail products all across Africa. We've also considered all the risks that might arise in all 3 phases of our solution, and we have also shown how our recommendations assess and mitigate these risks. But in the event of external circumstances like political, social, or economic crisis, we'll follow the hedging strategy to shift expenditure from inventory to just running the marketplace model, where sellers hold all liabilities of fulfillment. If this does not change in the long term, we'll also go for rebalancing strategy to shift the resources to another country that was proved to be profitable from our piloting program. This is how we try to design a robust model for Totowaka to expand to new markets and also grow in the next existing ones. Thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you for having the patience.
Awesome. Thank you, Team Raman from University of Dhaka. Now we'll open it up to Q&A. So if there's any judges in the room, I can pass along the microphone.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. We very much appreciate it. On the executive summary slide, you said under adaptable execution that your plan considers every possible situation to adapt and optimizes its effectiveness. I'm curious how you are so confident that you have taken every possibility into account in such a turbulent and dynamic time.
Sir, could I answer to that?
Sure.
Yeah. So largely the solution we have provided is a template. So in terms of giving examples of Mauritius and Namibia, we've taken into factors that are like that we can factor in at present to expand. We are calling this robust and calling this a solution that takes into all factors into consideration, because this template essentially says that in a scenario where there is an external factor affecting a market, we can always move out and then put this template solution in that point of crisis as well. Which means, suppose in a country that we've entered, if there is an external factor such as an economic crisis and stuff like that, we have a predictive modeling like our recommendation has mentioned, which help us opt out of that system and then opt into another country that might fit the criteria next and help us expand. That is the reason why we've called this robust and claim that it takes into account all external factors.
Any other questions from judges in the room?
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I have a question regarding the specific countries that you picked. It there are 4 or 5 countries in Africa right now that are going to be the financial hubs for the future, where the idea is to build a financial ecosystem with emphasis in law, accounting, and business services. For example, Kenya is considered to be the gateway for financial growth, as well as Rwanda. And of course, when those hubs develop, foreign competition will be more severe, since foreign countries usually or foreign competitors are more confident to do business in countries where financial development is very high. However, in your analysis, you didn't even mention anything about future projections, because most of the indicators that you're using refer to past data, and you do not include those 5 future financial hubs. Why is it so?
I think I'll start, and then I think one of my teammates can take over from there if they have details to add. I'll just answer the last part of your question first, as to why we took in like recent past data and not data, or like a projection of the future, because we feel like the money in hand of the 600 million as a startup, it's better invested if we start right away, which means, in the case that, ma'am, you are mentioning the hubs, like the hubs that are going to grow in future, we will invest in them in future when the market is ready. But our solution is something that requires a currently ready market, an untapped market that we can enter right away. This is exactly why we took present data into consideration and selected a few countries as an example as to something that can be suitable. And in the future, if those economies develop like you mentioned and you foresaw, then Totowaka as a company would also enter these markets using our template, because then it would factor in the growing economy of those countries.
To add to that, the reason we did not have a lot of factors in place is because ultimately this is a template solution, which means it's editable. So if some new factors have greater weightage, we can always adjust that in and add it to our decision criteria for future references.
Just one line to add at the end. Basically, what we are suggesting here is a recurring process and is not a one-time solution per se. So that's why what we are suggesting here, so we are primarily focusing on the $600 million in cash in hand right now. And with the process that's going to take place over time through the recurrence of it, we can also focus on the future growth potential markets as well in the future. Thank you.
Also, I had one point to add. Rwanda is doing well in the financial sector, like they're developing towards the financial sector. But in terms of e-commerce readiness, their latest rank is 116th, which is quite behind Mauritius and Namibia, the ones that we opted to conduct our market study in the beginning. So the African Free Trade Agreement can prove to be more beneficial for Rwanda in a couple of years' time, or maybe more. But till that happens, we cannot suggest that it is a good market to initially move into. Thank you.
Cool, awesome. Thank you, Team Raman from University of Dhaka. Can we get one more round of applause? All right, awesome. Now we have seen a highlight on how difficult it is to try and treat Africa as one market. As we can see, every country is its own market, and those are some of the challenges that have to be considered. Up next, we have Team Rocket from Iim Bangalore. Team Rocket, I will pass it over to you.
All right, can everyone please confirm if my screen is visible and I'm audible?
Just give it 1 second. We're just transitioning real quick.
Okay.
Okay, we're all set.
Sir, 3, 2, 1, go. Good evening, everyone. We are Team Rocket from Iim Bangalore, here to talk about Totowaka, an African e-commerce player. They have their established presence in 10 countries, but have scope to grow as they have not yet saturated their market. Yet, it is crucial for them to grow because only catering to their current customer base is not sustainable in the long run. Since it's a growing market and Totowaka will be the only player in some of these territories, the focus must be on volume over margin until a foothold is gained in the region. To do this, we propose growth along two axes. First, in existing markets where there's a lot of room for growth. Over there, Totowaka must make improvements across the funnel by improving awareness, driving interest, desire to transact, and taking action to attract big orders. The second axis that Totowaka must grow along is in the new markets. For this, we identified 7 tactical new geographies based on factors like political stability, ease of doing business, national demographics, and geographic proximity to existing markets. Executing these growth strategies is easier said than done. In our analysis, we recognize a host of challenges in the e-commerce space that have to be dealt with. The 3 most critical are warehousing and logistics, lack of digital trust, and last mile delivery. Warehouse placement and product assortment are crucial determinants of profitability because delivery regions can be far-flung in African territories and can drive up costs. Totowaka should hold fast-moving items chosen based on factors like variation in demand, price, and necessary storage space. The logistic challenge is amplified by the fact that many regions do not even have formal addresses. So Totowaka must partner with mapping apps and develop digital addressing technologies. African consumers have not yet embraced digital payment system due to lack of trust. Totowaka must implement e-commerce badges such as Trustmark to create legitimacy and partner with trustworthy public figures to associate their image with the Totowaka brand. Next, we recommend that Totowaka offhand the last mile delivery by supplying directly to local informal retailers. This will also help leverage the trust of the community in these shops to drive sales and help capture territories with low phone or internet penetration. This combination of B2B and B2C models will help tackle the lack of addresses and the low digital trust in Africa. We arrived at all these recommendations after diving deep into understanding the African e-commerce landscape.
Started this analysis by studying the end-to-end value chain of e-commerce in Africa from the perspective of a customer, and we identified major gaps. For example, broadband costs are high and only 40% of the population has access to the internet. A very small fraction speaks English. Also, more than half the population does not have a bank account, which makes payments challenging. Even the most basic e-commerce interventions that are taken for granted in other nations are not possible here, like cash on delivery, due to unreliable delivery personnel. All these challenges mean that African consumers don't even look online when shopping and have a strong preference for offline retail stores. Having identified the gaps and implications from the value chain, we propose growth for Totowaka along two axes. Like mentioned previously, Totowaka must increase purchase frequency and basket size in existing markets and selectively expand into potential new geographies. We make this call considering the structural, systemic, and physical infrastructure challenges of Africa. Totowaka will be better off leveraging existing capabilities in familiar products and geographies rather than starting from scratch in a completely diversified setting. Hence, a complete diversification in new territories is ruled out on account of extremely high risk involved. Let's deep dive into the first growth path in existing markets. Totowaka must increase their customer base by reducing pain points in the current value chain or increasing pleasure in transacting with Totowaka. With these factors in mind, we propose that Totowaka increase customer interest and desire through cashbacks into Totowaka Pay for less frequently purchased items like electronics, sales and discounts on prominent holidays, and optimizing recommendation algorithms for complementary products can drive engagement and repeat purchases. Totowaka must also add local languages into the interface and enable automatic reorders for periodic products like sanitary napkins. Most importantly, to facilitate purchase of more products, Totowaka should introduce free shipping as it is of high customer relevance and significantly increases pleasure.
For growth along the second axis into new geographies, we evaluated other African nations based on political, relational, developmental, and geographical factors. We considered metrics like EIU's Democracy Index and the Global Economy's Political Stability Index. Particularly important to Totowaka, we considered the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business ranking and looked at the country's proximity to an existing Totowaka territory. We added developmental metrics like the percentage of population using the internet and the GDP per capita. In this way, we identified 7 territories, and they are Rwanda, Tanzania, Cameroon, Mauritania, Ghana, Namibia, and Botswana. Rwanda in the east with Tanzania has the best ease of business scores and proximity to Totowaka territories, while Mauritania and Ghana have higher GDP per capita and relatively stable economies. In these new territories that Totowaka penetrates into, it must drive acceptance of e-commerce with baby steps. We considered the factors of high demand and ease of market access to choose the informal retail segment. In the short run, to tackle low smartphone penetration and distrust in digital purchases, Totowaka must intervene at the wholesaler level. They must partner with local informal retailers and drive them to accept orders on their behalf. If necessary, Totowaka can provide mobile phones and laptops to them.
With this strategy, we propose two operating models to address the challenges of last mile delivery and smartphone penetration. In the B2B model, we disseminate the wholesaler and sell directly to the local retailer. Totowaka can work with manufacturers to procure in bulk for aggregate orders and pass on price discounts to retailers. In the B2B2C model, we leverage the trust of the local community in the retailers and encourage the placing of orders at retail stores. Totowaka delivers to the retailer. In these informal communities, the customer may opt to pick items from the store or get it delivered by the retailer. Even more importantly, the customer can pay cash to the retailer, who then e-pays Totowaka, thus helping lower Totowaka's collection cycle while addressing the distrust in digital payments. The success of these models will depend on how well Totowaka manages to drive profitability by optimizing its marketplace mix and warehousing decisions. This is significant because delivery regions can be scattered and far-flung. Since the new territories selected are close to existing markets, the company can leverage its warehousing network and build new ones in strategic locations. They must also hold fast-moving inventory that are of predictable demand in their own warehouses and transfer the risk of unpredictable demand to sellers. If Totowaka holds inventory in-house, it takes on costs and risks and sacrifices some profits. But if it lets the sellers hold inventory, it compromises on delivery lead times. This decision must be made strategically based on factors such as items bulk, expiry dates, fragility, and tendency of returns. Given the recent friendly regulatory environment with the African Continental Free Trade Area, it is the right time to make these investments and expand the warehousing network.
While the partnership with retailers will help grow business in the short run, Totowaka must make investments in technology to deal with systemic challenges in the long run. For example, partnering with companies like Snoocode can help mapping delivery routes, which will only be optimized over time with increase in business. To build credibility, adopt e-commerce badges and establish a customer support network to drive retention. Previous success stories like Alibaba and Amazon indicate that exploiting cutting-edge technology is crucial to sustain growth in the long run. In similar lines, Totowaka can leverage blockchain to improve trust by securing transactions and faster fulfillment. All these interventions will need funding. Totowaka can leverage two sources. First, they can take over the role of agents who assist manufacturers with cross-border selling. Totowaka can incentivize them by handling the regulatory requirements and removing the burden from the sellers for a fee. Second, the company can seek options like Eurobonds, which will be an attractive proposition given the low fund availability and high cost of funding in Africa currently. Each recommendation comes with certain risks. Some of them are significant based on the probability of occurrence and its impact on Totowaka. Demand unpredictability is a major risk during sales season. We propose to mitigate it through better forecasting using AI. There is risk that the political environment turns unfavorable or that the African Continental Free Trade Area is unsuccessful. Totowaka should therefore create robust supply chains and use dual or localized sourcing wherever possible. There is a risk of mismatch in communication between the company and third-party sellers. This can be avoided by integrating ERP software across the value chain. There could also be errors in seller classifications, leading to loss of trust from them. Leveraging machine learning to automate this process can avoid this. In the long run, Totowaka must have a sustainable business model. It can do so by optimizing its product assortment by adopting high technology and becoming a provider of an ecosystem of online service. After implementation, it must take tough decisions about entering, remaining, and leaving territories based on performance and prospects. Lastly, the end goal is to take Totowaka from being a low-price e-commerce player to a brand that is a one-stop solution for online shopping, services, and entertainment. Thank you, and we are open for questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Team Rocket. Sorry, we missed a question in Zoom last time, judges. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the Zoom chat and we can announce them here. But while we give you a moment to type any questions from judges in the room.
Thank you for presentation. So as I understood, your solution has three parts. One's expanding product line, improving what you have currently, and expanding to other markets. If you were to choose only one of these three recommendations, which one would you choose and why?
Thank you for that question. If we were to choose only one of these three, then we would focus on immediate short-term growth in volume and sales. And for that, we would go with trying to increase purchase frequency and quantity, increase basket size using, by promoting bulk discounts, purchase frequencies, conducting large-scale sale days, and also trying to get more people through a subscription model, so that focuses on short-term growth in sales and volume, and also increasing familiarity with what the platform does.
To add on to what Nandini just said, the reason why we would probably prefer that is we saw the saturation in the existing markets is still pretty low. So that sort of gives us more room. There is a large room for growth even in the existing markets, and it could be considered a low risk path to grow in the short term as well, given that you are already present in those regions.
Awesome. And we have a question from Anuj on Zoom, where he mentioned, when you mention ML-based solution, can you be a bit more specific on what kind of data will you use and what exactly the algorithm will optimize on or predict?
Thank you for the question. So when we mentioned ML, that is basically what we will be using for classification. We actually wanted to find out whichever the like we in bank we have this thing of we'll find out which of the following creditors would be defaulting. The similar way we wanted to find out which of the sellers would be kind of defaulting in providing like the right kind of the products that we would have at that time. So that was what we had meant with an ML-based solution.
Okay, and I think we may have had one more question in the room.
So you say that one of the additional challenges that you have to address is foreign investments. However, I didn't see any plan for that, which I think is a very key component of what you're trying to do if you want to grow, to have a sustainable growth in the future. For example, why don't you why don't you keep track of the agreements that we have between countries and financial institutions in Europe, for example? I can be specific. For example, Kenyan officials signed an agreement with the City of London as a plan to launch a financial center in Nairobi. So why did you consider specific financial plans for the future that you should incorporate in your decision regarding which specific countries you should target first? Thank you.
So thank you for the question. So yeah, we did not look at the agreements between countries, but when we said foreign investments, we were looking at a lot of ESG funds and also the emerging market funds that are now available for investment across the globe from the developed markets. We do see a lot of interest from big let it be PE investors or banks in developed nations to get better returns, looking for investments in emerging markets and earmark their funds there. So tapping into that pool of funds is an attractive source of funding. And also given that as of date, Totowaka has no debt in its books, we did recommend going the debt route to reduce the cost of funding as well. And tapping into these alternate funding mechanisms, which can be obtained at a much cheaper rate to what is currently existing. So that is what we looked at. If anyone else just wants to add.
Cool, awesome. And we have one last question, and you'll have 90 seconds with a tough question. So can you elaborate on how blockchain will improve the process over traditional banking services, and which blockchain did you have in mind specifically?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So when we mentioned blockchain, so we had actually meant it for the supply chain in general. So in Africa, the main problem is reliability. So when we meant with what we planned with blockchain was adding a like one-stop place where you can track it right from the manufacturer to the seller, like till the point that it is being delivered. That was a point with the adding blockchain as a service. And Also, like the point of adding that was it would also help in like lowering the cost later on, because it would not just help in the supply chain in general, but it can also go into your operations, and then it can also help you with your payments later on. But initially, when we had planned it, it was only for the supply chain.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, Team Rocket from Iim Bangalore. Can we get one more round of applause? Awesome. That was a very in-depth look at so many factors that you need to consider when trying to scale a business like this. Next, we're going to have Team Dynamics from IIM Ahmedabad, and we will just give it 1 second to get all set up, and then we can let you know when we're good on our end.
Yeah, do let me know if you can see my screen. I'll just share it now.
Yep, we can see it. You're all set.
Hello, everyone. We are Team Dynamics from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, India. Today, we are excited to prepare and propose a holistic solution for Totowaka for building a sustainable advantage with operational and financial stability, which will eventually help them seal their position as a leader in the African e-commerce market. We focus on 3 big ideas in our solution. First, to change gears from rapid expansion to prioritizing profitability along with growth. Second, is to enhance scale and efficiency through data-driven tech solutions. And third is to push organic growth through higher market penetration by enhancing trust and quality. We analyze the e-commerce industry in Africa to understand the positive demand and supply indicators and the key challenges it faces. The African e-commerce industry is plagued with inefficient logistics, unavailability of non-cash payment methods, and lack of trust in online sites due to counterfeit products, cybercrime, and low digital literacy. As we go along the deck, we would be addressing these challenges through our recommendations. And in addition, the COVID-19 pandemic not only pushed contactless transactions, but also accelerated digital transformation, paving way to increase government support for e-commerce that Totowaka can exploit in the coming years. Furthermore, it is important to analyze Totowaka and the 10 countries it is present in. We drew out a model for measuring the attractiveness of these 10 countries with the axis denoting the internet and mobile penetration rate and the demographic attractiveness score, which is essentially computed by taking into consideration factors such as literacy rate, average age, and per capita income.
Africa is a land of diverse geographies and a diverse culture, which makes it difficult to exercise scale and also makes a one-size-fits-all strategy inefficient. Hence, we propose Totowaka to internalize localization at the heart of every business decision. We recommend doing so through a 2-layer data-driven approach. The first layer works on the country level, utilizing demographic data, past data, and trends to estimate demand and customer trends that will help make better decisions and drive revenues and organic growth. The second layer is on the regional level, which will help Totowaka make efficient use of scale in terms of making logistics leaner, warehousing better, and help make sure the operations and the bottom line are lean. A centralized insight center that leverages output from these modules to help country and regional health will be incorporated. We also recommend enabling e-commerce microfinance through 3 specific recommendations for Totowaka Pay that can help Totowaka leverage cross-network effects and a positive upside in margins, the number of players on the marketplace, and also increase customer traction. We recommend providing new partnerships and modes of payment that facilitate transaction across the financial spectrum. For SMEs, we open up short-term loans and EMI facilities that can enable these businesses to join our ecosystems and thereby help provide variety on the platform. With these recommendations, we want to target serving diverse geographies while promoting financial inclusion and profitability.
Next, we aim to transform the supply chain into an efficient logistics and delivery system to expand our market reach. For inventory management, Totowaka must incorporate multi-sourcing via service aggregators or consortiums to reduce dependence on a single supplier. This will increase their bargaining power and reduce occurrences of stockouts, giving them a competitive advantage over others. Automating warehouse activities will enable dynamic inventory tracking, and assigning orders based on binary optimization will reduce storage costs. For accurate inventory estimation, statistical methods must be used to be better equipped for unforeseen circumstances. The feasibility of these techniques have been tested and have successfully garnered results for global e-commerce platforms like Walmart and Amazon. For shipping, we propose a 3-tiered hybrid delivery model, which will help penetrate semi-urban regions of Africa and also enhance trust in Totowaka. Creating an O2O channel involves transferring online orders to local retailers who deliver product to the final consumers. Partnering with leading social networking apps like Facebook Messenger in Africa will enable easy order booking for non-tech savvy masses. Collection centers will be continued in well-penetrated markets like Nigeria, and traditional e-commerce channel will be monetized by offering logistics services to external parties. In order to provide greater flexibility and higher ownership to our merchants, we would allow them to fulfill orders themselves. However, our fulfillment services will enable them to enjoy the status of getting a verified tag to their products.
Coming to the third recommendation, we propose to create a one-stop solution through the right mix of first-party as well as marketplace model, given that both the models come with their own benefits and challenges. We propose a product-based balance model in which it should use first-party model for the fast-moving products which have lower storage and the working capital needs, as well as the products which are prone to counterfeiting as it will help in building the trust. On the other hand, it should use a marketplace model for the products which can result in blockage of significant working capital, as well as the products which have lower potential for counterfeiting. This hybrid model can actually help in maintaining the customer trust, lowering the operational cost, as well as growing the revenues and improving profitability. This model can be implemented by initiating direct selling on the platform to compete directly with the third-party players on the platform, subject to regulatory restriction of the different countries. In the first-party model, what we propose is that it should procure directly from the manufacturers, which will help in cutting down the intermediaries as well as reducing the cost due to higher bargaining power. Also, it should consider entering into a consignment-based partnership for the higher ticket products, which will help in reducing the working capital need. And along with these, it should also invest in digitizing and modernizing the supply chain to reduce any inefficiencies.
Moving on to the final recommendation, we suggest to address the customer pain points that costed Totowaka 32% of GMV in 2019 and 28% of GMV in 2020. Cancellations, failed deliveries, and refunds. This is a big challenge, and in order to address this, we look into the causes of cancellations and failed deliveries. We identified 4 major causes for cancellations and 3 for failed deliveries, which eventually lead to high customer dissatisfaction, high product refunds, and eventual losses. Our recommendations are threefold and revolve around quality, which would act as a key differentiator across competitors. The first one is information decluttering. When it comes to conveying information, videos convey faster and efficiently than images than description. We thus recommend adding product videos like anchor-based, animation-based videos, and making infographics which conveys the gist of the product attributes in one image. The second one is quality enhancement. Incorrect product information is a key cause for returns, and hence the process of verifying the product information before it is uploaded needs to be enhanced. We recommend bringing in a third eye by cross-category verification. Further, a push to get more ratings and reviews by adding customer incentives would enhance the quality of purchase experience. Add a multilingual chatbot with a mix of human interaction, and the overall quality of pre- and post-purchase experience multifolds. The last one focuses on rebuilding the trust. A strict return policy can bring back the lost confidence, and a seller-verified mark on the platform will bring the credibility, boosting the trust. Overall, these recommendations will improve the quality of the platform, enhancing the pre- and post-purchase experience, hiking the conversions. All this would ease communication and engagement, leading to higher assurance, addressing the challenge of lost trust.
So coming to the financial impact of the recommendations, we draw a comparison of the base as well as the recommendation scenario. So in the base scenario, we extrapolated the annual numbers from the quarterly figures given in the case and assumed the growth in line with the e-commerce expected growth rate in Africa. We projected margins to relatively improve with scale, with reduction in the fulfillment as well as the SG&A expense. In the recommendations case, we expect profits to improve significantly with operating margin of close to 7% by 2025. This will be driven by higher growth in the first-party sales from a balanced mix model, partially offset by lower growth in commission, as well as better revenue growth from an optimized localization, reduced stockout, as well as quicker delivery via a hybrid model. We also expect a significant reduction in the CFDR going ahead with the better user interface and the adoption of best practices. Coming to the margins, the multi-sourcing, the optimized localization, as well as the reduced fulfillment cost will help in boosting the profitability. And further, the enabling of e-commerce microfinance in partnership with the financial institutions will result in higher sales as well as additional income for the margin spread, partially offset by the expected losses from any default. And hence, we believe that the steps recommended provide a clear path to profitability and stability for Totowaka.
Moving on, non-exclusivity in suppliers, increased threat of cybersecurity and customer dissatisfaction are the key risks that can be mitigated by setting up global supply chains. Can you see the next slide? I'll go on. In addition, we recommend Totowaka to harness the potential of African youth by elevating their skills, both to give back to the community and also attract the best talent. We recommend doing so through competitors, workshops, and internships. Next slide. In order to grow without denting our financial stability, a phased implementation plan will first stabilize, then reconfigure, and finally transform Totowaka. In year one itself, we want to implement localization initiatives, a balanced business mix, and a hybrid delivery model, since they cause highest impact with minimal constraints. Collaborating for payment solutions and enhancing customer experience would be followed right after. Thus, a long-term vision and a holistic business strategy will help Totowaka build a future of stable growth and excellence. Thank you. Have a great day. We are now open to questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Team Dynamics. We'll start. We have a question from Peter. He is asking you to please take him through your thought process on regarding the balance of a three-party selling versus first-party, and how do you prevent your capital investment in first-party sales from cannibalizing the third-party sales?
Sure. I'll take that. Can you go to the third recommendation slide? So what we propose here is that given that both marketplace as well as first-party model come with their own costs and the benefits, so we wanted to implement a product-wise model adoption. So in the product-wise, the first-party model, we want to bring in the fast-moving products which have the lower working capital as well as a lower inventory. So that will not block capital. But we also understand that if we move to the first-party model, on one hand, it will help in reducing the counterfeiting goods on the platform. But on the other hand, it will lead to some loss in the revenue commission. So when we build the model, we have taken into account that the proportion for the first party will increase going ahead. But obviously, there will be some decline in the overall growth in the commission revenue that the company is going to earn in the future.
Awesome. Do we have any questions in the room?
We were musing on your recommendation slide. I think it is slide 10, if you want to pull it up. There we go. In your bottom left note, you say actual numbers for FY20 estimate and FY21 estimate are based of extrapolation of Q2 results from 20 and 21. In this really dynamic marketplace, help us understand, not just with that footnote, but as you're looking forward, how you have confidence in what the sensitivity is of your estimations moving forward, and why we should be confident in what you said in the upper right side, which is the clear path to profitability and stability.
Sure, definitely. So when we are actually trying to look into the building of the model here, so we try to understand the revenue growth. So we compared this quarter's revenue growth to the last quarter, and it did not see a very significant change, which you can see in the 4% growth rate, which comes basically from the case. But if you move ahead, so clearly that this year has been an disruption for the company, wherein due to the issues in supply chain, the growth might have taken a hit. But as you proceed into the future, the growth rate is going to bump next year, which you see in the sharp growth of 15% in the next year. But eventually that growth will slow down going ahead in the future, and hence it will reduce from 15% to 7% 4 years down the line.
Thank you. And we have another question in chat. Just curious, is there an existing business model currently in emerging markets that Totowaka can model its future growth on?
I think I'll take that up. So we kind of try to analyze the African e-commerce market, and we found that there's one company known as Jumia, which has a similar financial structure, it has a similar expansion model. They are also present in various countries and have a lot of market share in Africa. So some of our initiatives are in the line of not replicating their model, but learning from their model and incorporating some from different global marketplaces for e-commerce and suggesting them.
I'll just like to add to it. So there, in our recommendations, we have taken a bits from a lot of different companies, their models that which we liked. So for example, the O2O model, which is basically you order online, but the order gets transferred to a offline retailer near you. So that's basically that cuts down the logistic cost, helps in the environmental goals as well. And that is a model that is actually used by GeoMart in India, which is basically you can compare it slightly to an emerging market as well. So we have taken snippets of use cases that we actually liked in multiple different case models, and then we have tried to include every one of them and try to phase them out so that we are not financially constrained as well.
Thank you. Do we have any final questions? We have less than 2 minutes left on Zoom or in the room. Happy Diwali. And thank you so much, Team Dynamics. And thank you to all the teams who dialed in. It is very late at night, very early in the morning to all the teams who dialed in. Hopefully next year we can have you all in person, but can we get one more round of applause? Awesome, and that concludes the teams that are presenting virtually. Now we are going to welcome in Team Fletcher Connects from Tufts University, who will be presenting in front of the room.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We are Team Fletcher Connects, and we are providing a solution for Totowaka to remain the top e-commerce company throughout Africa. So Totowaka, or T as we will call it throughout this presentation, currently operates within 10 different marketplaces or 10 different countries throughout Africa. They're also faced with 5 current challenges. The first one being high competition, a high cost for last mile delivery, a large unbanked population, the need to improve margins, as well as a lack of trust. So we believe as a team that we have a solution for a 5-year, 5-prong approach. So this approach, first, we will go over with Clarice, our team member here, the cash on delivery, or COD, to COO orders, which is cash on order. Our next is to expand our COO kiosks throughout rural areas. Then Mary will talk about our influencer marketing campaigns. Evan will talk about remittances, and then sovereign wealth funds will also be addressed by Mary. We also believe that our recommendations will go over SDGs 8, 9, and 10.
So first, evaluating T as a company and the market in which they compete in. First, T has 3 lines of business. 1, marketplace, 2, logistics, and 3, payment, or T-Pay, which is the fastest growing segment of the company. And last year alone, in 2020, of the 25 million items purchased, 40% were T-Pay was used to purchase them. But the company is experiencing increased SG&A costs, which is shrinking profits. But there is an opportunity for T to increase the pie, because in the markets they play in, a majority of the population has access to the internet through various devices, as well as, on average, a significant portion of the populations have access to 3G and LTE networks. Now, looking at their penetration rate at the total addressable market, they've only hit 10%, but they have to win in Nigeria, followed by Morocco and Egypt.
So our first recommendation for T is to switch from COD to COO. What is the issue with COD? Very high cancellations rates of 27% compared to prepaid only 12%. Considering that COD orders make up for 60% of their sales, leads to a cancellation rate of 28% of T compared to the benchmark of 12%. So this leads to 210 million of lost sales revenue compared to the benchmark of 90 million. Second, the time between order and payment is extremely costly for T. On average is 20 days, leading to a tied up operating cash flow of up to 5 million a day. So our recommendation is to implement COO towards decreased logistical costs while keeping this cash-friendly e-commerce approach. So T will partner with existing banks, local banks, to implement the TPay feature on their existing ATM kiosks. The unbanked consumer can go to any of these ATM kiosks, deposit the cash, which go straight to the fund on the T marketplace. The initial investment will be about 12 million, as well as another 90 million of expected cost due to a 20% drop in cash sales due to unfamiliarity at the start with this new system. The annual benefits, however, 130 million based on reduced cancellation and returns to the benchmark, as well as a additional 5 million of daily cash flux available for other processes within the business.
So our next recommendation, or recommendation 2, is going to be actually expand the COO platform. So we would like to expand this outside of the urban marketplaces where T currently exists. And right now, what we have put in place is really a process pilot. So this process pilot would be where we actually partner with 5 rural village shopkeepers, and the shopkeepers would then implement these kiosks into their little marketplace. So at their marketplace, then the consumer would go to that kiosk, they would input the money, then the warehouse will fulfill the order, the truck will drive the order to the shopkeeper, and they will actually hold it for pickup. So we will not have the delivery go directly to their house, but be held for pickup. We actually would like to evaluate this program based on our revenues, our costs, and the logistics, as that's the most costly area for us. So we see ultimately the pilot costs around $100,000, but we believe that the potential gains is that T can be one of the first market players within this area. So upon this pilot, once the pilot is successful, around in year 5, we believe that they can actually expand further and take this to full throttle. So with that being said, we think that they can gain around $20 million within that first year with a net expansion cost of $12.1 million. And Mary will go on to influencer marketing.
So for recommendation 3, we think that T should leverage Africa's increasing social media user base to market TPay, especially in Egypt, Morocco, and Nigeria, where the user rates are the highest. Now, based on the total cost of influencers plus our anticipated ROI and marketing budget, we think that we can generate over 18 million in revenue the first year, netting a gross profit of just over 10 million. So we think that T should really try to market TPay as the #1 all-in-one payment system to make peer-to-peer payments, as well as to send or receive remittances, as Evan will discuss next.
So our next part of the strategy is capturing the attractive remittance market of Africa, because in 2020, $42 billion in remittances were sent, and that's equivalent of 3% of total GDP for the continent. Now, Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa, and that accounts for 3% of world remittances total. Now, sending money abroad is expensive. There's exorbitant fees. Many of us have had to send family members and friends money abroad. And this hurts the people it's supposed to help the most, because they typically send small and frequent transactions. This is how we can address SDGs 8 and 10 with some help from our social media influencers by encouraging people to download the TPay app, send money for $1 per transaction, and the people can collect 0.5% on that money they have in the system to use for their daily, everyday purchases. Furthermore, we take 3% of the pooled money, we reinvest it into diversified, safe short-term assets, and in the first year, we expect a return profit of $13.5 million.
So this brings us to recommendation 5, which is for T to really seek out a long-term investor, like a sovereign wealth fund, for example, to support overall growth and to secure this funding by year 3. So why a sovereign wealth fund over a typical PE or VC firm? Well, sovereign wealth funds typically invest over very long-term time horizons and won't necessarily be looking to exit in 3 to 5 years. Sovereign wealth funds have doubled their investment into e-commerce since 2018, not necessarily into Africa, as other emerging markets like India and Indonesia. However, the e-commerce market overall shows very strong growth, expected to reach 46 billion by 2025. T can also leverage their extensive capital and knowledge base to help grow the company more effectively. Sovereign funds have invested over 13 billion into e-commerce and internet companies since 2019, and we can also demonstrate that this investment will directly contribute to SDGs 8 and 9. So this funding is really going to support our proposed changes to T's core business model, which again include the change to COD to COO, which we expect to drastically reduce the cash conversion cycle to negative 30 days by 2025. This initial decline in demand, we expect to be offset by reductions in cancellations and failed deliveries. Additionally, we would like T to reevaluate the product mix of first party to third party, reduce that down to 36/64. This financing will also be needed to expand the rural pilot program. So overall, we anticipate that T will need $294 million in external financing to support the next 4 years.
So the 5 strategies in place, we've identified 5 key risk areas and identified the 2 most concerning risks being implementation and operating. Now the implementation is if the drop in demand exceeds that of 20% from that switch to COO, and the operating is if the pilot just fails because there's not enough buy-in. But the solution for the mitigation is pretty similar in both cases. 1, building trust across stakeholders, and 2, leveraging the partnerships with the banks and the shopkeepers. And Jack will take it home.
So in conclusion, we believe that these 5 strategies will actually help Totowaka increase their profit margins, as well as increase their product stickiness. This, in turn, will actually help Totowaka maintain their position as a top e-commerce platform throughout Africa. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Do we have any questions in the room to start?
Yeah, my question is about the remittance solution that you guys have. So your proposal is to charge $1 per transaction. And my question is, how do you plan to do that? Because it's going to be more expensive than that. It's usually much more expensive than that, especially if you're talking about emerging markets and high exchange ratio. So it's, can you walk me through your solution?
Yeah, sure. So here we go. So first one, we're leveraging our relationships with our banks. 2, with the free trade agreement. The central banks are talking around Africa or talking about creating this common exchange place. And 3, we figure from our diversified portfolio, our returns will cover our base on losses because we're seeing this as a B Corp situation. But 1, it's a scaled initiative. The more people we bring in and the larger we can invest, the more it will cover. Yeah, and Mary? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, can you slide back to the slide around your pilot? I commend you for having a pilot, right, and scaling it up. I think that's a worthwhile step. I'm curious about the size. So you go from 5 only rural areas, jump to 800 kiosks, right? So why not have either a larger pilot, 15, right, rural, suburban, urban areas, or some intermediary step in between?
That's a great question. We decided on 5 pilots because we could really focus in on one specific city. So then from those cities, we could actually try different villages or different suburban areas around that city, but still be in close area proximity for transportation. So if something goes wrong, then we also have like an office there or something that we could fix really close right away. So that's why we decided 5, but I assume 15 may work just as well.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, and we have a few questions over Zoom. So the first one comes from Peter. He says, your marketplace business faces the classic chicken and egg problem. You have two sets of customers, sellers, and consumers. In your view, which side of the platform is more critical to your long-term success and why?
I would say that for the chicken and egg problem and who's the most concerned about would definitely be the consumer. So, we don't have anything if we don't have a consumer. So that's also why we're playing to the cash on order area, is because a lot of our consumers, they aren't banked or they don't trust the bank and they do want to pay cash. So that's why we really focus in on the cash portion. So I think we definitely want to focus in on the consumer and the consumer's needs. And then maybe if we identify something that, they may want, but they don't have yet, it's our job as Totowaka to actually create that for them.
Cool. Awesome. And the next question comes from Anuj. Any specific reasons for fixating on sovereign wealth funds and not any other funding sources?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as I said before, sovereign funds typically are very long-term investors, unlike VC or PE funds. Additionally, they've been acting, I guess, increasingly more like VCs with a lot more investment into tech and e-commerce, especially in emerging markets. And it's just no one has tapped into Africa quite yet. So we think it's a very good investment opportunity for them, especially if they have a co-investment kind of deal. So yeah, we think that this is a good opportunity for them to use their capital and knowledge base in their long-term horizon.
Cool. Awesome. And then the next question is from Abdul. Do you have any examples from emerging markets of companies who have successfully overcome barriers similar to Totowaka?
Typically, e-commerce companies are usually not profitable for a long time. So that is a very common problem. And we've seen a lot of different examples of how companies have overcome this. There's a couple of e-commerce companies, both in China and Indonesia, who have overcome this problem just by sheer size and scale and marketing.
Okay, cool. And I think we have roughly 1 minute left. So one last question coming from Surav. Will the cash on order model be a problem in a continent where trust, especially in digital transactions, is low?
Yes, we do incorporate that. So we are planning on not only, we're partnering with the banks in order to use their ATMs, but we're also partnering with local petrol stations across these cities at the start in order to increase this trust, because the operators, they know the people that live there. There's a strong feeling of community. So through these local petrol operators, we assume that consumers will more easily buy in, and that the local petrol operators will really help them starting to use the COO system.
And I can add on to that for the COO platform and expanding that out into the rural marketplace. So this is the key reason as to why we're going into partnering with those shopkeepers, because they already know them. So that automatically will help them gain trust once we include them within the process.
Awesome. Can we get another round of applause for Team Fletcher Connects from Tufts? And up next, our final team of the day is going to be Team Kelly Consulting from Indiana University.
Good afternoon. We are Kelly Consulting, and today we'll be presenting on the topic of achieving sustainable top market position in Africa through new infrastructure. This presentation will be delivered by myself, Jerry Wong, as well as my colleagues.
Hello, I'm Tanishq.
Hello, I'm Lucy.
Hi, I'm Tanushree, and our colleague Lauren will not be able to join us today.
So first, a bit about your company, Totowaka. We understand that Totowaka is currently the leading e-commerce platform in Africa. You operate in 10 countries, you have over 1 billion views, and 7.1 million active users. However, there's been changes in the industry as well as the overall African landscape that is posing a threat to our current market position. Those changes include the rapid growth of social media, limited internet usage, limited logistical as well as infrastructure capabilities, and last but not least, increased competition from domestic and abroad. This leads to the question of how could Totowaka maintain top position within the African e-commerce sector. Now, our recommendation comes in 3 parts. The first is to establish smart kiosks, which will allow customers to place an order, which will generate sales, as well as increase and create orders. Those orders will then be fulfilled by our ordering hubs, which will be located close to our customers and enable us to reduce our delivery time and improve customer satisfaction. Now, to ensure that our ordering hubs are shipping with all the most relevant products, we'll be utilizing predictive analytics, which will allow us to forecast the future demand of different products within a very specific region and allow us to ship the right products to the right place and at the right time. It is also important to note that what we are proposing here is a test pilot project, which will first happen in 3 countries, Nigeria, Egypt, and South Africa. Now, delving more into the first recommendation, the kiosk, we have identified a few main barriers to e-commerce usage in Africa. This includes low internet usage, literacy rate, as well as a reliance on cash-based transaction. So we have developed a kiosk that addresses all of these issues. It will have a reliable connection to the internet, which enables our customers to browse our site and place an order. It will accept cash in addition to credit card and mobile payments. It will come with 24 hours customer service, as well as an alert system in case if there's any tamperings. Last but not least, they will enable voice recognition and verbal instructions to guide those who cannot read the written instruction to still be able to browse our products and make a purchase. Now, this using kiosks to increase revenue has been done before. Subway, for instance, managed to increase the revenue by 218 million through the use of kiosks, and McDonald's was able to grow the revenue by 7.2%. And we are confident the same success could be done by Totowaka. Now, to guide you through a typical customer experience journey when using the kiosk, they will first learn about the kiosk through one of our representatives or through our marketing efforts. And after the installation of the kiosk, they can then set up their account and start browsing relative products through our touchscreen monitors. After that, they can select the product they want to purchase and purchase through cash or any other payments. And then they will receive a printed confirmation of what they purchased, including the delivery time, so they don't have to go back to the kiosk every single time to confirm those details. And after that, that order will be processed and a product will be shipped to them. Now, in the chance that they are unsatisfied with the customer service they received or the product that was delivered, they can always go back to the kiosk, enter in their username, and then request for a refund. This will ultimately ensure that customers are happy and we're meeting their requirements. Next, we'll have Dinesh talk more about our second recommendation.
Thank you, Jerry. Our aim is to utilize or transform the current logistical capabilities for Totowaka by utilizing ordering hubs. The whole goal is to bring operations as close to the consumer as possible. Now, the ordering hub would perform 4 major functions. A, it would be acting as a storage space for a subset of our inventory that would come from our main storage space or our headquarter inventory. It would also be acting as a loading dock, which would efficientize our supply chain and allow us to do deliveries faster and reduce our liabilities. Also, it would act as a retail space fitted with amenities, which is aimed at making Totowaka an experiential platform for our customers, where they can interact with the storage hub and actually identify a few of the products that they want to consider and want to experience one-on-one. This physical architecture would ultimately add business value to Totowaka in various terms. First of all, it would provide us the much required insight into supply chain and increase our visibility that would ultimately provide us resilience. These ordering hubs are strategically located into major consumer clusters and would be acting as a backbone for our kiosks, which target the far-off areas and the rural areas. Also, by implementing these ordering hubs, we would be able to deliver our products as fast as 2 to 3 days, and that would prove as a major competitive advantage to us against our competitors. The whole concept of ordering hubs is not exactly new. It has been tested and been succeeded in by Alibaba, and they were able to garner as much as 190% in their sales by implementing this exact concept. Totowaka can surely mimic this success in African continent. Coming to our final recommendation of predictive analytics and intelligent marketing. Africa is a growing economy and it is generating a myriad of data points. These data points, if tapped, can provide us a sustainable advantage into the current scale of African e-commerce industry. We plan to utilize the data sources that we have in terms of how our user interacts with our application, what kind of browsing psychology they have on our websites, and most of the social media actions that they take on particular products. All of these data points funneled into our analytics engine and powered by our analytics team would allow us to identify what the consumer wants and when he wants it. Now to Lucy for implementation and risks.
Thank you, Tanish. Okay, so we will first start by implementing the kiosks and the ordering hubs simultaneously. The kiosks will be finished at the end of Q2, and the ordering hubs will be finished at the end of Q3. Alongside that, the predictive analytics and the post-launch will be running indefinitely alongside of the project. And it's important to note that the running analytics will become more accurate and we can get more customer insight the longer that it's implemented. Moving on to the risks, we've identified many risks, but the top risk that we have identified is the lack of qualified IT employees. And this is because we want them to be able to efficiently run our predictive analytics. So our mitigation plan for this is to recruit around Africa to find the top IT employees within Africa. And if we need to, then we will recruit out internationally. And now to Tanu, who will be presenting finance.
Thank you, Lucy. So, as a part of our recommendations, we have identified few costs, the majority of which comes from the fixed cost related to establishing ordering hub and also implementing the kiosk. The other cost would be the variable cost, which would be the labor cost and other operating expenses. We have also catered in for the analytic team cost. Now moving on to the benefits. We project that we will be able to increase our sales by 5% because of successful implementation of a project and also increased use of the kiosk by the customers. This number can be further increased year on year because of our increased marketing efforts and predictive analytic capabilities. As we can see in the graph, we are able to break even in less than 2 years. Over the course of 4 years, we can also get a 34% return on investment. In conclusion, our solution is broadly classified into 3 main categories. The first one is the smart kiosk, which will help the customers to order the products they need and also increase the internet penetration in Africa. The second would be the ordering hubs, which would help fuel the increased demand from the kiosk and also increase the delivery time. And the third would be the predictive analytics. That would keep on improving year on year as we gather more data from the customers. As we know that this is a pilot project and we are just catering to the 3 top countries we have identified, after the success of this project, we can scale our operation and go to other regions and countries within Africa. Totowaka would be the first in the country to have such a unique solution. Hence, it would become very difficult for our competitors to replicate this solution. In conclusion, following this solution, we can say that Totowaka can continue to maintain that top leading position in the e-commerce industry for a sustainable future. Thank you, everyone. Now the floor is open for questions.
Okay, it looks like the first question comes online from Surav. Any example of self-serving kiosks working well in another African country? And how feasible is this idea? Sorry, someone else just had a question. How feasible is this idea where there are security concerns as well as a lack of familiarity with technology?
I can take on that one. Thank you for the question, first of all, Saurav. Well, there is a startup that is based out of Kenya, which is named One Kiosk, which has implemented this particular idea of interacting with consumers and mitigating the risk of internet availability through kiosks. Now, they are not a direct competitor to us per se, because A, we are not diving into Kenya currently, and B, they only serve in the grocery sector chain. To add to the profitability point that sort of picked up, a very good point, most e-commerce sectors or the startups start with a base profit logic where they are not able to be in profits, but one kiosk has been able to generate profits within 2 years of the inception and has now received series funding as well. And that's why in terms of profitability, this solution has worked particularly well for them. Coming to the security standpoint, yes, vandalism, and if we talk about physical security, those challenges still exist. But with proper mitigation plans, they are negligible and manageable. And ultimately, the cyber risks that are involved can also be mitigated if we use the right techniques at the right cost.
Awesome, and we got a lot of questions. I'll try and combine them because there's a few people who haven't asked questions before. This is from Anirudh and Lorena, kind of following up. How would you address the issue in rural areas where there's not good internet connection? How would you maintain that 24-hour support?
Yeah, so I can take on that question. Thank you for the question. So essentially, to clarify, we won't be providing internet access to all rural areas, but just to the single kiosk. So therefore, we will be connecting that through a single wire. And in order to make sure that it's functioning, we would be sending IT personnel, people who have expertise, to constantly monitor those kiosks and check it on a weekly, if not bi-weekly basis.
Okay, great. And we have a question from Chima. Did you consider telecom companies as potential competitors in Africa's e-commerce space? They're currently diversifying into other sectors since they have strong penetration to many African markets.
So we don't view them as competitors. In fact, we view them as someone we can have partnership with. Ultimately, what we're doing, if they are successful, the telecommunication companies, if they are successful, that would mean that there's more market penetration, there's more internet penetration in Africa, which actually makes it easier for us as a company to do business in those areas.
Do we have any questions from judges in the room?
My question is, how long do you expect this kiosk solution to survive? And I say that because focus now is to increase connectivity everywhere. So when people are connected, would they still need the kiosk? What's your view on that?
Can I take on that? Sure, thanks. Thank you for the question. While we do understand that the kiosk approach might not be prolonged for so long as Africa is a progressing country, and hence our total recommendation is based on another approach, which would basically give us geographical advantage by using ordering hubs. Those can be utilized even further on as we progress on building our future solutions. While kiosks might be limited to a certain places later on when the internet penetration is increased, the ordering hubs is something that we can still utilize countrywide in many regions to give us that ability in supply chain that when even a new competitor enters the market would not
have. On your slide that has the McDonald's stat, can you slide to that? I think it's about slide 6. Thank you. So as you're pulling it up, I'm curious about the source of these two statistics and whether they included experience within these African countries in their experience, and if not, why you think that research is directly transferable to that setting.
Yeah, I can take on that question. So that stats also complements with the stats that was previously brought up by my colleague about the smart kiosk that's being used in Africa. This was just a more clear use case about a kiosk being used to sell a specific product, and that has been used in the US market. Although it's being used in the US market, we believe there's a lot of transferable benefits, including convenience, including time, and including reliability, all of which our customers in Africa also value.
But the diversification of products is significantly larger here, right?
That is correct. We would have more products than, as we are e-commerce, than that of McDonald's. But if we do the right scaling and if we, with the right IT talent, we can make that happen.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Team Kelly from Indiana. Okay, and that about wraps it up. If I could just get 30 seconds before everyone goes on their coffee break. I want to thank, first of all of the judges. Thank you for the excellent questions, both in the room and online. Thank you, Claude and Corning, for their support, tremendous support with the case competition. And of course, thank you to all of the participants online and in the room, as well as Amanda, who did an amazing job planning all of this.